All right, thank you very much for having me, and my apologies, I could not join you in person. I've just had a few health issues, which means that I cannot move ahead and be with you in person, but thank you so much for having me. My name is Barka Musai. I'm the regional lead on Blue Economy for IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. My focus is very much on the regenerative blue economy and blue policy in the context of the Great Blue Wall Initiative. And if I may, I'd just like to share a few quick slides on the Great Blue Wall Initiative, if that's okay. Okay, I can see part of my face. Can I go ahead and share the screen?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Super. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Sure. Sorry, just gonna present. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So just very quickly, for the purposes of this workshop, introduce what the Great Blue Wall Initiative is and the importance for us, why we were very keen to be part of this workshop, is that the Great Blue Wall Initiative is really about rebuilding the narrative of the African continent as a leader in ocean governance and the blue economy. It's something that's extremely important. So the point of departure for us is that the Great Blue Wall Initiative is essentially a network of seascapes that have been identified along ecologically significant sites, socioecologically significant sites across the African continent, but piloted in the Western Indian Ocean region. And the purpose, the objective behind connecting these seascapes is really to create both a bottom-up and a top-to-bottom approach to not just ocean conservation, but to the blue economy and livelihood creation as well. So we're looking at transformation by leveraging the power of oceans to address the climate, biodiversity, and economic agendas. As you can see from this map, a figure of a wall is starting to emerge when you look at the different seascapes where we have either projects or country offices. And what we're seeking to do through this connected effort of change is to create a transformation within the region around ocean related impact. So at the moment, you are in one of the seascapes, which is in Tanzania, which is really one of our main and pilot seascapes. And we're looking to elevate the African continent at regional, continental, and international level. So how we do this, so these are the initial focus seascapes. You can see that they're also quite intentional in the choices that we have made by looking at areas that have both local community engagement, but also very important ecosystems. So the way we do this under the Great Blue Wall Initiative is really by taking 3 pillars of action. The first is the Blue Planet pillar, which is all about governance and meeting the 30 by 30 target on marine conservation. But the way we're doing this is not really just by looking at marine protected areas alone, but also by looking at what we call the locally managed marine areas, which is basically LMMAs, which directly involves local communities, or what is considered Africa's marine indigenous people and local communities, IPLCs. Many people assume that marine IPLCs exist only in the Pacific or in the Caribbean, but that is not true. We also have a very strong community of marine IPLCs in Africa. And this pillar is really concerned about reaching 2 million square kilometers of conserved areas by leveraging the power of local community and local community action. The second pillar of action is the Blue Nature pillar, which is on fostering nature-based solutions and restoring critical habitats. We're focusing very specifically on mangroves and seagrass ecosystems, which this area is really very rich about and rich in. And the objective here is really to restore 2 million hectares of critical marine and coastal ecosystems. And with this, we're also looking to unlock innovative financing solutions. And the narrative here is really to shift. I'm sure many of you in the room would have heard that Africa is a victim, that we are the continent that contributed the least to climate change, but we are the most affected, which is true. But we really need to change the narrative to Africa being actually a net contributor to climate solutions through our ecosystems and ecosystem interventions. Now, the third pillar of action, which is the one that I lead under the Great Wall Initiative, is to catalyze what we call a regenerative blue economy and ocean policy. So, what is a regenerative blue economy? And this is, again, directly linked to the theme of the workshop in Zanzibar. We have all the data that we need about how human activities have heavily impacted the ocean. If you look at the latest IPBES report, it would tell you that there isn't a single area of the ocean that has remained unaffected by human activity. So essentially, human impacts have permeated every single part of the ocean. And just putting a marine protected area is not going to be enough. We need to actually transform the economic activity going on outside of the marine protected areas. But also, we need to actually now, we've reached a stage where we need to be reversing the damage that has been done to our marine and coastal ecosystems, because the blue economy itself depends on this. Our people depend on it. And a regenerative blue economy essentially is a form of the economy that allows us to, that allows coastal and marine ecosystems and the socioeconomic dynamics that depend on them to regenerate. We've reached that stage, and we need both the finances for this to happen, the innovation, science, and tech, as well as the policy advantage. So this is what the Blue People Pillar is about. And now the Blue Partnerships is really about connecting and collaborating across the region and beyond. And this is extremely important. I won't go into too much detail into this, but we have quite a few projects under the Great Blue Wall Initiative. And I think my colleague Hamid is in the room. So we have some projects that are very explicitly on circularity, such as the Island Blast project, which he can speak to in more detail. As mentioned, we are looking really at creating more policy impact, finance. We are looking towards accelerating momentum towards important goals, the 30 by 30. We're looking to catalyze a network of local custodians, and we're looking to advance the scientific, the economic, and the socio-ecological capacity of the region. So this really is, I'll share these slides, but this in a nutshell is the Great Blue Wall Initiative. And just my final conclusions with regards to the workshop right now is, when we're talking about journalism, about storytelling, about narratives on the African continent, it has become more important now more than ever to really shift the narrative from Africa as a victim to Africa as the source of these solutions. With the Great Blue Wall Initiative, while we're putting together these connected levers for change, it's really to tap into all the brains that are available, all the solutions that are available, because we believe in really like a all minds on deck kind of approach. And to foster circularity and the blue economy, we are essentially moving away from traditional conservation narratives. Initially, it was very much focused on marine protected areas, but now we are really looking to tap into the power of our innovators, our young entrepreneurs. And one of the key priorities for the Great Blue Wall Initiative is to foster what we call blue venture building. So we have developed a blue venture project, which essentially, in some cases, handholds entrepreneurs and venture builders and innovators how to set up a business, how to be part of a pipeline of innovation, and how to really access different forms of funding. And we have been doing that in partnership with various organizations such as the Ocean Hub Africa, the UN Economic Commission for Africa, as well as BFA Global, etc., just to help create that ecosystem of change. And some of the solutions that have sprung and that have been supported as a result of this are really quite extraordinary. We have had people provide solutions for dealing with single-use plastic, or we've had people come up with solutions for increasing the blue food value chain through aquaculture with a gender lens, and it has really been quite extraordinary. And we are really looking to expand that and untap the ocean entrepreneurial mind that already exists on the continent. So with that, I'll just pause here to see if there are any questions. As mentioned, we are very present, and we're extremely keen to be part of this movement building, this narrative building, and just changing the mindset, the paradigm, the storytelling around this.
Right. Thank you very much for that. And I know that our colleagues here in the room will have a few questions for you, but I just want to start by maybe when you look at generally in Africa, what are the key main issues would you say that should be addressed as a matter of urgency for us to achieve at least the goals? What are the urgent matters to be addressed?
Apologies, could you repeat the first part of your question?
I'm just asking, like, what are the matters of urgency, the key issues that should be addressed from the word go, from where we are right now?
Ooh, okay, let's solve this problem in the next 30 seconds. I would say, honestly, there's three dimensions to this. The first is really the policy momentum, which is that we have, I mean, you've heard ad nauseam how we have a youth dividend, how this continent is the most entrepreneurial continent compared to other continents. But in many instances, the policy, what I call the policy competitive advantage, has not yet been put in place. And this manifests itself at the local or national level, where, for example, entrepreneurs who are working on circularity do not get any preferential business model that they can tap into. For example, social entrepreneurs still have to pay the same amount of tax, for instance, as, let's say, a medium-sized company that's established. And this is really like a deterrent. Very basic structural issues like, once someone at a university has graduated, then they cannot access the university lab anymore, where they can tinker with solutions. And it's also at regional level where there are now increasing movements to connect different countries, but the reason why the Great Blue Wall has been very deliberate in taking a regional approach is to really bring those countries together to start more exchanges in terms of expert exchanges, in terms of mindsets, and in terms of even data where that data is relevant. So creating that integration really helps to boost that ecosystem approach to entrepreneurship in the circular economy. The second thing is in terms of finance. So one of the stories that has been a little bit my North Star and has continuously been on my mind is, back in 2020, 2014, we knew of this very brilliant young entrepreneur in Seychelles who was developing alternatives to plastic packaging through seaweed. Now, especially in Zanzibar, this is like very commonplace, but 10 years ago, this was quite new. But she did not have access to the kind of infrastructure and funding that would have taken her innovation to the next level. Whereas a company, and I'm not going to name which one, but if you Google seaweed to plastic Silicon Valley, you're going to find exactly which company this is. That startup benefited from about $10 million in continuous rounds of funding for 5 years without having put a single product on market. That is a kind of luxury that our entrepreneurs are not allowed or not given, because of a geographical quirk in that, they happen to be based in a different part of the world. So we need to be a lot more intentional about, first of all, unlocking sources of financing within the continent itself for our entrepreneurs, and developing those financing mechanisms that allow people to fail, to disrupt, to prototype, because this is what's going to take us to the next level of innovation. And the private sector has a key role to play in this. And with the African Continental Free Trade Area, we have a window of opportunity to start this conversation. And then we need to also be a lot more deliberate in how we have these conversations, especially now, about financing, and move away from mere grant-based approaches to more sustainable forms of financing. And then the last one, I think, is really, and again, I'm very excited to see the outcomes of this workshop. It's also a question of prioritization. To what extent have we created the narrative for people to see a marine economy as their main as their main career, as their main priority, rather than as a sector among many others in an economy? So this narrative really needs to change. And with that, having more prioritization given to ocean science coming from this continent is key.
Right, thank you so very much for that intervention. I want to give to open it up for questions from our journalist colleagues here.
Good morning, Baka. My name is Pauline from Kenya. I've spoken about how it is important for Africa to change the narrative, the conservation narrative, and how you're trying, in your organization, you're trying to achieve that. How relevant is storytelling in this process, and how do you think training of journalists will help in achieving this? Thank you.
That is a Yes, I caught that. And greetings from Nairobi, where it's been raining very heavily since morning. I think that's a very, very, very important question. And so I think everything ultimately boils down to storytelling, and to the narratives that we tell about ourselves, and about our place in the world. And journalists definitely have a very important role to play in that. So in the last few months, we've seen in media in different parts of the world how, and I'm trying to choose my words very carefully, how media chooses to portray the African continent, how media chooses to portray the global South. And as journalists, I think there's a really important role in breaking some of the more paradigmatic approaches to the stories that we've been told. So in my first intervention, as I mentioned, we really need to start reframing the African continent and the region as a highly investable region, and as a region that is actually producing solutions. Internationally, there's various agencies. For example, there's the different credit rating agencies that brand the continent as high risk, and this has a direct impact on our economy, on how on our ability to navigate certain financing mechanisms. And ultimately, what this is about is really about narratives. In the case of credit, why is Africa still a high risk, and yet still there's so much interest in investing? Something clearly doesn't compute. The same thing around how an entrepreneur in Africa is equally contributing to the global solutions towards climate change, towards the biodiversity loss crisis, as someone in another part of the world. So that is really important. The second thing is, and I found this to be increasingly important, is that representation really matters. This year at the African Union, the theme of the year is reparations, reparative justice. And there's a reason why this topic has come up now. It is because there's a growing awareness, both from young people, but also in some of the more discussions and philosophical circles of the continent, that there's a lot of healing that needs to be done on the continent. And journalists, again, have a role to play in how that conversation is being guided. And the all of this boils down to say that we are really actively contributing to global solutions, global value chains. Chocolate, I'm seeing like chocolate wouldn't exist if there wasn't, for the production of cacao, if it didn't like start from the African continent. Many of the fisheries value chains and fish processing rely on some of the productions from the African continent. And that is very important. And finally, my last point is that we often talk about South-South cooperation. I think the time is really ripe for us, guided by some of this narrative unpacking, to have now a North-South dialogue, which is really built on a mutual search for a sustainable, equitable, and just world. And I think, especially now when we're seeing so many crises erupt across the world, so many people capturing narratives, it's become very, very important.
Thank you very much. We are going to, okay, let's take one more question, and then I hope you're able to stay with us the next presentations.
Good morning. From Tanzania. You talked about doing research on the blue economy in Tanzania. Is it possible to know what the situation is on the ground?
I'm sorry, the sound didn't come through. So maybe if you can type on the chat.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's still a little bit muffled, but yeah, if you could ask the question again, that would be great.
Okay, we are going to type the question so that you can get it very well. One last question for Baka so that we can move to the next speaker.
Hi, Baka. Mine is not a question. My name is Miriam, but I would like to some clarification. Did you mention something about conservation moving away from unprotected areas to protected areas? Or I got it wrong?
Yeah, okay, let me take that question while we type. So historically, the conservation world has been very focused on achieving the Aichi targets, and the main tool that has been deployed has been protected areas. And this can be a range of different types of areas. This could be something called a no-take zone, where no human or economic activity is allowed, or something that's a little bit more hybrid, but still within the parameters of limiting damage and impact. But very often this has been, unfortunately, historically, and this really goes back to pre-independence eras as well, some of the ways in which these protected areas have been deployed have been at the cost of local communities. And it has always been like a dichotomy between protection versus economic growth. And often in many situations, the economic narrative prevails because you simply cannot afford to close off a whole area to economic activity. It doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It's just, yeah, it doesn't mean that it's good or bad. But I think now there's an increasing recognition that we cannot just put a protected area in one place and then continue degrading the environment around that protected area and expect the protected area to save biodiversity and people. So my comment was related more to the fact that we are moving away from a narrative of just having those protected areas to also ensuring that people, that we're looking at livelihood creation towards transforming the economy as a whole, moving it away from extractive activities, so it's what we call a nature positive dimension. And the logic behind that is really that if you have a sustainable management and use at 100%, then the protected area where there's no economic activity is more effective. But also that people don't have to choose between economic growth and environment. So this would be really the logic behind it. And it has provoked a lot of debate in the conservation world. Like, are we selling out to to the but, are we diluting our focus by looking at the blue economy? But ultimately, unless we are transforming at system level, then we will fall short of our own targets.
There's a question that has been typed on chat.
So, yes. So the Tanzania focus one specifically, and I'm happy to connect you with our Tanzanian colleagues. So we have one of our main seascapes is the Tanga Pemba seascape, and a couple of projects that IUCN is leading in this in the Tanga Pemba seascape. We have something called the Bahari Mali project, which is supported by the government of Ireland, which really focuses on fostering entrepreneurship at MSME level. Which also engages ecosystems such as mangroves and which has a gender focus to it. And another project, the project that I mentioned, Island Plus, which is very explicitly focused on plastic pollution and circularity, is now being rolled out across Zanzibar. So I'll just drop that in the chat, and I'm happy to connect you to my colleagues if you drop your email address in the chat as well.
All right, thank you so very much, for your time.
I will present on behalf of Principal Secretary because of tight schedule, couldn't stay here with us. So I will be taking you away through the challenges and issues in developments and the climate change. As we can see, the Zanzibar is an island, large, with two main islands. One is here in Unguja, the other island is Pemba. But we have also 53 islands, which make the opportunity for investments. The population recently roughly is 1.9, of which 51% are women. And we are depending mainly on tourism and fisheries, more main economic sectors that supports about 2/3 of the population. The GDP growth is between 4 to 8, and mainly in tourism is heading for 29%. But because we are service economy and we are an island with not much industrial, so the importation, international trade is almost 99%. We are depending on the national trade. We can see the gender issue that we are having 32% of the family headed in Zanzibar. That means women are the ones who are bringing the bread in the house. So we can say female headed percentage is 33%. And most of them, they are working on agriculture and fisheries. But when we come to land ownership, 75% of women do not own land and access, compared to 23% for men. So we need to give them more access. And time spending, women are spending much time for family care and housekeeping rather than men, which are almost spending only 13%. The unemployment rate is 14.3%, and we can see the working force for female, they are bigger than men. But we have enrollment in the primary school. Women are less, but when we come to higher learning enrollment, we can see the female are ahead, which is a good indication that female are more hardworking and they are very intelligent compared to men. So as we can see the summary of the economic, so we can see the area is about 2.5 kilometers square, and with a lot of EEZs, exclusive economic zone. And we have seen the population, and the total rate is 6.9 as per 2023. When we see the economic growth, we had inflation rates high and depression in the economic growth during 2020, during COVID-19. As you can see, as we are island, depending on much on external pressures. So when the COVID came, it hit severely in Zanzibar, and then we had to drop in 2020, and then almost in Bacon. But then after that, the government has taken measure to survive the economy, and then now we are moving in the positive direction, and then the projection, as we can see, we are going to increase the economy. As you can see, Zanzibar is depending on the service economy, and we do have few medium industry, we can say 30%. And then agriculture and fisheries are taking about 26%. And about 8% is on taxes and revenue. Because we are island, as we say, the 99% of the cargo are coming from, or we can say business are coming from abroad. We can see the trends of container freight price. It has been increasing gradually. Yeah, so this brings also the economic pressure to the goods and the commodities, they are coming from outside. And exportation vis-a-vis importation, we rely on much exportation, importation, and other than exports. We are exporting very few goods. How we get to this regime in 2020, now, global economy agenda, we had global economy policy developed in 2020. vision is Zanzibar to be a leading hub for blue economy in the Western Indian Ocean. That was our vision, the blue economy policy. And in the blue economy policy, we have 5 priorities, which are fisheries and aquaculture, tourism, maritime trade and infrastructure, energy, and the blue economy governance. So some of these priorities, they are in our ministry, fisheries and aquaculture, oil and gas, and the coordination of blue economic activity. Those lies on the Ministry of Blue Economy and Fisheries. And while coordinating the blue economy activities, we do have our priorities like tourism. They are outside our ministry, but we have to coordinate them. So that's why we are in the department we are from. And the maritime trades is also another ministry, but we are coordinating them to make sure that we are working together with the blue economy. And we are trying to organize illegal fishing to make sure that people are moving with according to regulations and guidance for fishing. And maritime safety and security to make sure everybody is secure himself and property and all other stakeholders, including so coordinating also to make sure that we are together. How we are going, yeah. So, agenda, in accordance with the Zanzibar Development Vision 2050. And now we have established we have established a full ministry leading the blue economy and developed a policy of 2022 and strategy for implementation. And also we implement intervention plan for during the COVID-19 to make sure that we are empowering our fisheries and sector because it is a very strong sector in Zanzibar as we are an island state. Zanzibar as an island nation, of course, it faces the dependency of resources and fisheries for its economy, tourism and agriculture. The development of the country, of course, depend on the climate change related changes and the threats that are coming. Of course, they destroy the economy. So we have to live according to the situation as an island state. We do have a very high population growth. These are the area that we have as a land island. So you can see that in terms of land per kilometer square per people, every kilometer can be occupied by almost 800 people. So which bring very high pressure on the land acquisition. Climate change and external shocks, of course, as an island, I have said we face a very severe, whatever external change comes. So the other one to observe first is for the COVID-19. because we are depending on tourism, 29% of the economy, so that when external shock arises like that, then we have to face the consequences, like what we faced during COVID-19. Other issues, of course, affecting the more general, like any other island, as sea level, frequency of cycle. Recently, last year we have cyclone, and it affects most of our fisheries, fishermen. So those are the issues that, as an island, we cannot be exceptional. Coral degradation that affect the sector, also the fishery sector, but also saltwater intrusion impacting agriculture and drinking water. Most of the areas they have this problem, and then the government has to take and of course, change due to climate change, and in a few months' time or few days, those who will be here will experience, of course, the rain, which of course will have somehow effects in the economy and the livelihood of the people. Loss of coastal settlements, because once when the seawater intrusion and during the rain season, some of the coastal settlements are being lost, and the declining of fish stock affecting also as well the food security due to those climate change issues. So we can see the temperature is expecting to 1.5 to centigrade increase, which affect, of course, the livelihood of marine resources, but also the fishermen for their. We do have also the pollution problem. The islands, a lot of transportation are moving, whether to our coast or some of them they are just passing by. So some of the pollution, because the sea, there's no boundary, whatever is happening with the sea, and sometimes it impacts the cost. So any other coastal regions, of course, we are threatened by those pollution, marine biodiversity being damaged, and ecosystem, of course. Marine resources, overfishing and illegal fishing. Of course, our fishermen, one of their main goal is to exploit as much as possible for their benefits. But we have to take some measures to raise awareness and give them some tools and the guidelines to make sure that they are following the fisheries guidelines, not to over fishing, in order for having sustainable marine resources. And when you do so, sometimes, you know, unwanted means of fishing, like using dynamites and whatsoever, which are the ecosystem and habitat of the marine. So you get So we have just suggesting of potential solution and opportunity. Expansion of the blue economy in the fisheries and seaweed farming and marine biotechnology to make sure that we are putting forward more opportunity for the population in the fisheries sector for them to earn their livelihoods every day. But using renewable energy to reduce the dependence of fossil fuel and increasing the norms of green energy. Also, strengthening climate resilience, but also projects for the personal individuals who can those are the major that can help. But the last and not the least, capacity building and then about these are the most critical because every youth has a dream, and if we don't create and make their dream to be true, then they can create by their own, and we don't want to go in the wrong direction. These are some of the opportunities that we can see that we have big young boys and girls, their future leaders and marriage path. We need to believe that their future is. We can see the red color. Those are the areas that are affected by the pollution. So you can see almost MI and there is more affected the area below 5 million. And where we are, also you can see also the island is also in danger. So proud to be a strong leader that supports the economy and
geospatial information systems specialist. He works for Digital Earth project management officer as a project management officer and as a user engagement manager. He plays a key role in capacity development and support of stakeholders across Africa. Joseph, can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me too?
Yeah,
I can hear
I am going to allow you like your presentation of like 15 to 20 minutes, and then we can engage you on questions. Are you okay with that?
Yes, okay, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Let me see if I can share my screen. I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to showcase the work that's been done by South Africa. I'm Joseph Tishimire, as the moderator said. I'm also based in Kigali, Rwanda, and I've been working with the Africa in the last 4 years, but also I'm part of the University of Rwanda as the Center for GIS. So today I want to discuss our service, we call coastal service, that helps us to monitor the coastal trends across the African continent. Allow me to switch off my camera because my internet is not strong. So probably most of you didn't hear about the Africa, or they would like to understand why the Africa should showcase our work to a wide range of journalists across the continent. It's because our vision is to provide routine, reliable, and operational service of observations, to mean that using state images to deliver some decision-ready products that could support makers, scientists, sector, and the civil society to address some challenges that our continent is facing. Align our video to assess and understand the needs at the continent, but also try to provide late data set and capacity building and the of our governance, mostly open free data, continental services that are operational at no cost, accountability and transparency, and most importantly, the diversity and inclusion, no one behind, trying to serve the whole continent being free of charge. So for a program to be operational and provide a service that's reliable at the continental level, collaborate initiatives and centers across the continent, actually come to call partners centers through which we go with validation, dissemination of a product. Ultimately collaborating access that Observatoire du Sahel, Tunisia, Agreement Center in Niger, Afrigist, Nigeria, CSC in Senegal, RCMRD in Kenya, and many other national space agencies. It was very important because from them, we got some in-situ data set to validate what we do, but also we're able to assess priorities at national and continental level. So far, we have a very long time series that starts from 1980 to nowadays, and also everything really accessible and upload to cover the whole continent, and of course support capacity building across the whole continent. And of course, we know most of people would like to have some user-friendly interfaces. That's why we have put in place a variety of platforms to allow everyone, including journalists, to explore datasets without necessarily being experts in geospatial technologies. I'll be showing this later. So far, a lot of continental products. Today we'll be focusing on our cost and service. That is to understand the trend of coastlines and also identify hotspots with the fractional cover. Now we have to understand the trends in wetland. We have GeoMat. Those are crowd-free images that able to run some analysis, maybe to understand the urban trend, vegetation trend, crop trends, and so on. We have our water bodies and water observation from space. Those are services for long-term assessment of water resources across the continent. We have a fractional cover for agriculture monitoring. But today, the topic of the day is coastline to understand trend or the coastlines and also some threats on the population and infrastructure. But why do we need to understand the trend of the costs? Those are very big socioeconomic hubs for 38 over 54 countries in Africa. And they host a half of the 15 African megacities, which are fast growing due to the migration and population growth. And the coastal communities are dependent on the blue economy and also are always affected by any impact related to climate change. There are some issues. The sea level is rising, and of course, oxygen is increasing too, and we need effective management measures coastal change, but also to mitigate the risks, guarantee a sustainable development around the coast, kind of sustaining both ecological functions, but also maintaining or preserving the coastal infrastructure. And this coastal services was developed from the methodology was brought by the Australian Coastline Service. Methodology was very well documented and co-developed and validated using institute data set provided by African partners, especially CSE and the RCMRD. Now you are in Zanzibar. RCMRD covers the East African and the Southern African countries, and it's a kind of sponsored and endorsed by the governments, I think the two governments, if you remember. And so it was the first project that could provide a continental-wide insight on the trend in coastlines, and you can see the trend from 2000 to nowadays. And we can monitor 6,000 kilometer of the African coast for countries with the small coast, and also with the longest coast, like Somalia. You can understand the trend at the 2-meter resolution, but also now we are trying to upscale to 10-meter resolution, including the Sentinel-2 datasets. And to obvious, we can understand the hotspot, the region hotspot, the rate of change, the average annual shift, and of course, this is even impactful in addressing changes related to coastal erosion. We thank you from CSC, especially for contributing to the validation of our product, especially on 12 worker countries in the West Africa. We did a large-scale monitoring using statistical tests based on the mean square error. It's kind of tests of precision, and the service was performing very well. We even adopted at regional scale to monitor the erosion. And if you can see, you can change, you can monitor from a given region, you can see the trend, even the precision error, the confidence interval, and also it can have either have been erosion or have been accretion, and this could be monitored, and each single coastline could be extracted per year, and then you can compare the trend on an annual basis. So they should share using the sound tool for you to.
Coasts are an important part
Julie, could you hear the sounds?
Yes.
of the land on
Okay,
which
thank
we
you.
live. In order to protect these special areas, we must understand how they are being impacted by weather, the changing climate, and the expanding human population. Coastlines are fragile. They ebb and flow with each weather event. They are the first line of defense in a storm. They are the first to experience the rising sea levels. With a rapidly changing climate and growing populations, we must protect the fragile and vital ecosystems of the coastlines in Africa. Now we have the tools to help us understand and protect our coast. Introducing Coastlines, a new service from Digital Earth Africa.
L'outil Digital Earth Africa a été développé par Géosciences Australia en rapport avec le centre de psychologie. C'est un outil qui permet de suivre différents indicateurs par rapport au risque côtier, par exemple, dans le domaine qui nous intéresse. Et l'intérêt, c'est que ces images Landsat de moyenne résolution sont facilement accessibles, sont gratuites, alors que les images d'autorisation sont chères et pas forcément accessibles. Et nous, dans le cadre du travail que nous voulons faire, donc à l'échelle régionale, à long terme, il est beaucoup plus avantageux de pouvoir accéder à des images gratuites pour pouvoir pratiquer ce suivi d'indicateurs à long terme.
Through the use of satellite imagery and data, the Coastlines Monitoring Service allows users to map the location of the African coastline and identify patterns of coastal change. Using satellite imagery, Digital Earth Africa has created a full continental data set. By capturing where the land meets the sea, the Coastline Service visualizes and provides the rate of coastline change over time. Using the Coastline Service, we can see how beaches, mangroves, river mouths, and the tidal flats have grown and eroded over time. Digital Earth Africa's Coastline Service takes the lead from world-leading methods developed by the Digital Earth Australia team. In collaboration with implementing partners, the methods developed have been tested and validated through a truly global collaboration. With data freely available and updated regularly as it continues to be acquired, the service allows current rates of coastal change to be compared with that observed in previous years or decades, giving us the best holistic picture of the African coastlines we've ever had. Although still in the early stages, the Coastlines Monitoring Service is already having an impact.
On peut d'ores et déjà se projeter sur les perspectives d'usage. Donc la première idée qui vient à l'esprit, c'est d'utiliser l'outil pour le suivi du trait de côte au niveau de 3 échelles, l'échelle régionale, l'échelle nationale ou bien l'échelle locale. Donc l'autre idée qui vient à l'esprit, c'est de pouvoir utiliser l'outil Digital Earth Africa Coastline dans le cadre de l'Observatoire régional du littoral ouest africain pour le suivi de l'indicateur érosion et accrétion.
Le littoral ouest africain a quelques particularités, mais globalement, il y a également des spécificités qui sont partagées avec, par exemple, l'ensemble du littoral au niveau mondial. C'est une zone qui concentre beaucoup de personnes. 50% de la population urbaine est localisée au niveau du littoral. Il y a l'essentiel des activités économiques également est concentré au niveau de cet espace-là. Et sur le plan de la biodiversité, presque 50% du linéaire est composé de vasières à mangroves. Or, les mangroves, ce sont des zones de haute biodiversité qui regroupent beaucoup d'espèces végétales, halieutiques, etc.
Coastal erosion has both an economic and societal impact. By mitigating coastal erosion risk in 3 key sectors, Digital Earth Africa could inject some $460 million per year into Africa's economy and change the lives of around 270 million people. There is more we can do to help stem the tide and protect the special ecosystems in Africa. Through Digital Earth Africa Coastlines, we can plan for the future by unlocking the patterns of the past.
It was a kind of movie, a kind of documentary about the service, the Africa Coastlines, which was refined and also it was developed by a journalist, and I hope the communication should be better than it can do. And we can view this via different interfaces. This is the maps, very interactive, through which you can understand the coastlines. I will be showing a little bit how it works. And this was an example of following the coastlines. Here I was in Mozambique and Madagascar, trying to understand from the change, the rate of change to the identification of each individual shoreline, but also the lines in the dots. I have had some a very small, a low precision, and this was due to data quality and so on. But that's why I tried to highlight some of the points. And currently, we are trying to upgrade the service, trying to combine the Sentinel dataset, which is better in terms of resolution, quote 10 meter, compared to the Landsat that is 30 meter resolution. Then you can either use the Sentinel combining Sentinel-2, which is optic, and Sentinel-1, which is radar, and then you have a better resolution. But still, you can combine either Landsat and Sentinel or have 3 combined depending upon data availability. And now the notebook is now available. It will be used by everyone at small scale. Those are some examples. This is a kind of cumulus. It looks over time, combining years from 2018 to 2023. And also, this is how you can, from a time series, delineating water from land using what you call water index, and try to generate coastline on annual basis, even produce next animations that could be very easily communicated using the sandbox. There is a dashboard that was developed in collaboration with the S3 that only informs us about the erosion hotspot on a map, but it can show us how each country has been affected by the coastal erosion. And also you can see the retreated shoreline, advanced shoreline, the populations are at risk, and also and by given region and this over years. I will share the presentation of the team. Maybe everyone should get this presentation. You want to click on this link to see what about, we took Tanzania because you're in Zanzibar, but also you can see for other countries how this has been. Almost 850K population was impacted by the coastal erosion over time. And also we thank S3, one of the big company in geospatial technologies. In collaboration with them, we're able to make our coastal services available via the platform. This is the Africa Geoportal. On just a click, you can view the data set and also enjoy the exploration of the trend of coastal erosion over time. And using this platform, we can see if there's been erosion over creation, and also try to analyze the hotspots over time. And this is very easy to manipulate. You don't have to be an expert, just a simple click, like people are using the Google map while navigating your tools, or even while developing your stories. Sometimes you use Google Earth, and there's a platform that should have the geospatial aspect embedded in it. And the most important stuff, or also interesting, it's like for each country, you can identify the status, even if there's a traction of growth or the coastal erosion, the population to be impacted, the infrastructure in terms of built-up areas, the crops that should be impacted, the forest, and the coastal ecosystems like mangrove that will be impacted, but also you could understand the kilometers of roads that may be a kind of distracted over time, and you could also understand the social infrastructures of hospitals and schools, business and tourism, how this may be impacted by the coastal erosion, and this is free accessible using the platform. And also this is the way of accessing via the Africa Geoportal. The same thing, trying to understand the level of vulnerability per each country. And this was applied in South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal, trying to quantify the coastal risk and the vulnerability using this platform. And this could inform, even this coastal vulnerability index, it's a way of having facts to inform the coastal, the management of the coastal the coastal erosion and the ecosystem infrastructure at given point in the area. And this the outcome here, this was in Durban, South Africa, and the outcome should understand the projected population per countries and also the key impacts that could arise from the coastal erosion in that area for reformed management practices. So the thing, yeah, could you hear me? I don't catch you. Yeah, can you hear me?
You take a minute to the last of your presentation to end.
I'm not capturing you.
But I'm requesting you to wind up now. Minutes to do the winding up of the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Okay, I'm already done, and the Africa training course to help people to understand how a platform will work. You go through and you get some certificates, and maybe a course that's dedicated to the coastal erosion, and also then you have our website for more information, and we meet each Wednesday to discuss the difference in of our platforms, and to thank our partners. And of course, for the feedback, you can scan the QR code and get back to us for the improvement of what you do over time. Think usually, if we allow more time, I can demonstrate how the platform work, especially the maps and the dashboard, how it looks like. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's appreciate Joseph. And so Joseph, just hold it there. We are going to allow one or two journalists to ask a question. That's okay with you?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. No problem.
Right. So we are going to take questions for both speakers. So if you have a question, please, for either of the two speakers who have spoken for the last two sessions, your chance now.
So my question goes to Mr. Omar. You talked about illegal fishing. I would like to know how bad is the situation in Zanzibar and what you are doing to ensure that it comes to an end.
Yes,
My question also goes to Mr. Omar.
we'll take both of them. Okay.
You shared a clip of, I think it was a map, showing how bad it is in terms of how the island has been affected by some, is it some weed or something? I don't remember very well. Salt. Okay, is it possible to get data on that?
Any other question?
Question he said about 6 or 7 issues, climate change issues that are affecting Zanzibar. But specifically, I would like to ask you a question on coral reef degradation. If there are data that show how much area has been affected, but also declining fish stock. Do we have data that show the declining fish stock? Also, displacement. I see in the last slide you show displacement in Zanzibar and Pemba, maybe 24 to 56%. What those percentages mean? Do you mean 54% of population is displaced in Pemba, or in where you've been displaced due to maybe some total intrusion also?
Okay. Well, questions, you take the last three.
here to sum up as well. I was very interested with the data that more than 70% of women in Zanzibar, they don't have access to the ownership of land, and we know that the climate change is a very indirect issue-related land. So, is there any initiative that government is doing to make sure that we increase that number of women to own the land, so that the we can make the effort around adapting and mitigating the effect of climate change more effectively. And another, I want to know how much do you use media to promote the blue economy as the main agenda of Zanzibar, especially on stating journalists, promoting press freedom, funding journalists to covering climate stories, and uses of early warning system, those and crisis communications, so that media they can alert and communicate issues related to climate change.
Right. But normally we have a hacking task. So I just try to
Thank you very much for this very good questions. And I will start the illegal fishing. So for the illegal fishing, it's not much, but there are some people still they are using illegal means, for example, for fuel animals. Some they are using illegal nets, which have a very small hole that can catch up to young fish. So those are the issues that are facing illegal fishing. And of course, as a ministry through Department of Fishery Development, we do have guidelines, and we have fisheries officers in each district, so that they make education, and we have a committee, fisheries committee. So through these committee, we are engaging our fishermen best way of fishing, and how can they benefit when they leave this illegal and they come to legal fishing for sustainability of the fishery sector. So we are taking this measure, and so far they are working well. Of course, not 100%, because they are up and down some challenges that we are overcoming. The data for this intrusion of salt water, climate change is under Ministry of Second President's office. So there we can get out of almost all that regarding to climate change, CO2 and technical adaptation and mitigation for climate change. So those data we can go regarding this example that I don't have deal with them, but when we are dealing with fishermen, time to time through this fishers committee, they are complaining that okay, we are getting much pressure on following the measure for sustainable fishing, but we cannot get much fish recently, and why don't you let us use whatever measure so that we can catch as much as possible. So that's the indication that fish declining is taking place. But secondly, the data availability, or we can say yearly fish catch data that we are collecting, indicating that sometimes they are declining of the fish catch. Time to time, for several issues. Some of them, of course, are coming from climate change issues. And for this land ownership, of course, you can say somehow due to economic situation sometimes, you know, it happens over time that men, they are mostly in honor. It's not prohibited for women to own land, but it happens that most of the time men are the majority in land owner. So there are few women who, of course, own land. Sometimes for inherit from their parents. Some they buy it. But recently, of course, the young population generally when you get money to buy land, but the majority, if you compare men and women, that's why you get that ratio, that 73 by 75 by somehow. So how the government is doing, of course, is we can say is not the government per se that to help people to buy land, but of course you can just give the opportunity or benefit of having land, and then it's up to citizens themselves if they decide to buy land or they are, I can say, but once when you have opportunity to buy land, you can buy on your land, whether you are man or woman. So media awareness, how are we using media for economy? Of course, we are doing much for the media, as you can see today. We have a special purpose for this forum to make awareness for the economy. And our leaders, most of the time, they are going to television, newspapers, say about the blue economy and the benefits and how everybody should take place in order to have a sustainable blue economy. Because it's very difficult leaving the one ministry or certain group to develop for blue economy. So we need to go as a nation together. So from our leaders, His Excellency, wherever I go, of course, he put forward the blue economy agenda, and the media is going to be trying to do them as much as possible.
Let's appreciate our last two speakers. We are going to share the presentations of all our speakers so that you can be able to interact with them. And Julian is also going to upload them on the Africa.1 website. But if you need to do something like, you know, at the end of the day today, you can have, we'll have presentations with us because all our speakers have shared their presentations. So that marks the end of our first part, the first part of our workshop. And we are going